I'm Lindsay Bugby from The Postman's Knock. If you're not familiar with me, essentially I love art and particularly calligraphy. I have a book called The Calligraphy Book that I published with DK a couple of years ago, so definitely check that out if you're interested in calligraphy, or if you're just here to learn how to make something nice for your mom, that's also great. So just some background, I had actually prepared this calligraphy to teach you how to write, but then when I sat down today, I thought, you know what, this is created with a pointed pen, so that pen looks like this, might be a little foreign to a lot of people watching this video, and I just want to present you with something super beginner, simple, but also effective and pretty. So you know what we're going to use today? We're just going to use some cardstock. I took a piece of cardstock that I had cut to 5x7. I folded it in half, used a bone folder to reinforce that crease, and now I've got a card and it can go in this little envelope. So the question is, how do we personalize this card into something that mom or one of the beloved mothers in your life is going to enjoy? And the answer is something called faux calligraphy. I will walk you through that. But for now, let's just go ahead and write happy. And I want you to write that, well, watch me do it. Watch this H. I was going to say I want you to write that in cursive, but I recognize that a lot of people don't write cursive H's like this, myself included. So try to make an H that looks like this. And notice that we are at a diagonal here, mainly because we don't want to have to deal with measuring out lettering. This is just meant to be a very approachable, easy tutorial. We do an entry stroke here and then draw an oval. Notice I say draw. We are actually drawing here. This is not writing. Calligraphy is all about drawing. So nice, neat cursive, yes. Try to keep the letters a little bit wider than you would normally, and I will show you why that is here in just a sec. So we're going second P here, and then finish this off with the loop, and we will make our Y. And you know what? I'm actually not going to put a tail on that Y right now because I just want to feel out the situation as far as spacing goes. So I'll write mothers. So let's start with a pretty flourishy M. So again, we are drawing, not writing. This isn't normal everyday handwriting. Just try to approximate what I'm doing here. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause the video. You can look and see what I'm doing, going up, 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 and then I'm going over, and yes, this is intersecting. Go down, we'll let this flourish, hang right there. It's called a flourish when you have an embellishment. It can either be coming off of a letter, like this H here, or it can be standing alone. So we're not obviously getting as complicated as the piece that I just showed you, but we are going to put a little bit of spiciness in our Mother's Day card. So just keep on writing. And obviously it is okay if yours doesn't look exactly like mine. The goal here is to just make something that mom is gonna like. It's not to exactly replicate what I'm doing here. And then let's cross our T. And then for the Y, we're kind of awkward because of this H, so let's just kind of keep it over here and then maybe pull this over in a flourish. And now, see, so this is what this looks like so far. If you want to pause it and approximate what I'm doing, we are going to write day. So pull this down to the left, make our nice flourish D, and you know what? I can't resist. I'm going to do a few coils here, and then Let's write the A, and we'll finish up with Y. So you see, this is at its core mostly cursive. We're just embellishing it a little more than you would your average cursive. And let's go ahead and make a flourish. So pause right there. That's one of the big secrets of calligraphy. The pauses are really what make it pretty, because you need to give yourself a chance to reset, and then just pull down those flourishes to fill out the rest of the card, or at least the corner of the card. Another thing you'll want to be mindful of, breathing room along the edges. That's always good. Even though it's pretty to embellish a card a lot, it's very tasteful to leave that border. Of course, you can have intentional flourishes that go off the edge of the page, but make sure that they obviously look intentional in that case. So now what I'm going to do is just fill in the rest of the card with some flourishes. That is just a fancy word for coils, little cursive S's in some cases. So let's just play around with those flourishes to fill in the rest of the space. Maybe we do something down here, a couple things here. And you know what you're doing right now. I am sneakily having you practice flourishes like this. And I'm actually in the middle of teaching an intermediate course. I know you can't see all of this, but I mean, check out this lettering. This is gorgeous. So I'm here to tell you, if you want to learn how to use the pointed pen, so a calligraphy pen that you dip in ink, you can definitely learn how to do that. In fact, and I'm going to keep flourishing here, so flourish along with me. I'm going to link to some of my early work so you can see that a knowledge of calligraphy is definitely not something you are born with. It is something that you cultivate over time and enjoyably, and you can absolutely learn it if you want to learn it. But again, if you're just here for the Mother's Day card motif, hey, welcome to. Glad to have you. So there we go. This is actually only step one of what we're doing. So we have the bones of the Happy Mother's Day motif here, and we'll probably add a couple of extra embellishments. But what I want you to think about now is, as you were writing, when did your hand go down? And whenever that happened, go ahead and draw in a parallel stroke. So you see how I did that there? And you want to make sure it's tapered too. So it's not too thick where it meets your original stroke. And then you just fill it in. And what you're going to find, and I think this is so cool, particularly for people who are afraid of that dip pen and ink, is that all of a sudden you've got a look that approximates the pointed pen. So let's just keep going with that. So just drawing these parallel strokes, and you can do it any way you want. I typically fill in one stroke at a time. And the reason I do that is sometimes, especially with these gel pens, you don't know if it's completely dried yet. So if I make all of these strokes and keep them open, and then I pass my hand over those open strokes again to fill them in, sometimes it smudges. I definitely don't want that. So that's why I go one at a time. This, my pen went up for this, so we don't reinforce that. But we did go down for this. So let's reinforce that A, really trying to keep those thick strokes the same width as we're going down. And you can bet that we want to add that contrast to the flourishes as well. And it's all about, a lot of calligraphy is the game of keeping your hand out of the way so it doesn't smudge ink. So the system that I'm using, the order that I'm going in, is very heavily influenced by what I think is going to smudge and what I know is not. So if I'm sure something's dry, I am comfortable passing my hand over that. If I don't know whether it's dry or not, I want to avoid it. So notice I'm not putting my hand over this part that I've already drawn over. Especially if you're left-handed, the order might be slightly different. So just go with your gut on what might feel like it's dry. If I were left-handed, I would probably start over here in this corner. So just something to keep in mind. You lefties actually have an advantage when it comes to pointed pen calligraphy. I know I've been showing you this pen a lot, and if you're new to the calligraphy world, you're probably wondering, what the heck is this thing? This actually approximates the writing angle of a left-handed person, so we righties can get that right-leaning slant on our letters. It's called an oblique pen, and it's fabulous. You can learn how to use it in my beginner's course. And even though it looks a lot more intimidating than a straight pen, I actually find it's a lot easier to use, and a lot of people find that to be true as well. So definitely worth a shot. Really, if you like the meditative nature of doing this project, then you will probably enjoy pointed pen calligraphy, because it also involves just a lot of deliberation, a lot of relaxing time to yourself. Though you will actually find that if you're working with a pointed pen, something like this goes much, much faster because you only have to write it once. Whereas notice with me, I wrote it one time, and now I am going through and manually filling in what we call downstrokes. And actually this upstroke looked a little thin, so I reinforced that. Notice that your hand went down here. So let's give that a little more contrast. Again, making sure you're tapering, trying to stay consistent with the width of those downstrokes. So what happens in pointed pen calligraphy is when you pull your pen down, you apply pressure on your nib, and that causes tines. So they're like these two little forky things at the end of a nib. I'll show you. They spring apart, and boom, you have a thick downstroke. Here, we're approximating that by manually drawing them in. And the term for what we're doing here is faux calligraphy. But you don't need to qualify giving this card with, oh, I didn't use real calligraphy for this. Really, any sort of embellished lettering can be considered to be calligraphy, because calligraphy is the art of drawing letters. Sorry, I just got preoccupied with that Y there. That downstroke was a little trickier because it was so long. So fill it in, and then you need to think about, all right, so this went up, 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 and then we went down here. Now at this point you might be thinking, well, Lindsay, how do I decide which side to draw the stroke in on, the right or the left? And the answer to that is just wherever you find breathing room. There's really no super wrong way to do it. And the more that you create calligraphy, or faux calligraphy even, the more you're going to develop that eye, meaning the thing you see with, not the letter. And then this is a downstroke, but I'm still gonna just keep it pretty thin. I might go over this just to give it a little more contrast. And then in calligraphy, we're moving things around a lot to get the proper angle. So actually, even though this is a horizontal stroke, with the pointed pen, you would draw it with the paper facing down like this or on its side. So I am going to make it into a tapered downstroke, almost like a banana. And I'll make sure that you have a PDF graphic of this so you can reference it as you're creating, because especially if you're new to this art, it's so much fun to give something like this, and it makes people feel so special to be on the receiving end, because it's clear that it takes a lot of care Okay, and I'm not going to make this first stroke thick, even though it is a downstroke, just because I don't want to overdo it on the downstrokes. I was just thinking about this the other day, because we're moving into the flourishing unit in my intermediate calligraphy course. So flourishing, of course, being the art of adding embellishments. And a lot of people feel like they just don't do it right because they feel like there's just one right way to do it, and that right way is a mystery to them. I like to think of calligraphy as an undecorated room. Okay, so if you get a room and it's white, there's no wrong way to decorate it, because it's all about your personal taste and your personal preferences. So in calligraphy, especially when you're doing these embellishments, I think a lot of times you see people make embellishments and it's like, oh, well, they obviously have knowledge of how to do this exactly the right way, and I don't. But it's really just all about getting to know what you like and what sort of your standby go-to tricks are. So for me, I love to fill up a corner of the page with those S's, but that's just a me thing and something that I've, developed and learned over the years that, oh, this can be really effective. So anyway, just something to remember, that it really just takes practice and getting to know your own tastes in the calligraphy and the lettering. And then this is an upstroke. This is a horizontal stroke, so we're going to keep it thin as well. This is definitely a downstroke. I was just watching an SNL London clip. The comedian was Jack Whitehall, and he was joking, why hasn't AI taken the calligrapher's jobs? He's getting married and he's spending a lot of money on his wedding paper goods, as a lot of people do. And my answer to that is that, calligraphy is so unique. And there's just something about knowing, just like having a really cool, personalized, hand-sewn wedding dress. It's just that tactile feeling, the fact that calligraphers can write on all sorts of different beautiful papers. And when I say calligraphers, I don't just mean the professional calligraphers. I mean anybody who is doing calligraphy. I mean, if you decided that you want to create calligraphy, you could go out tomorrow and buy beautiful deckled edge cotton paper from Indian Cotton Paper Company, and you could use this technique on it and it would still look amazing. It is so neat to see how people really just kind of lose their minds over beautiful lettering. It stands out. It really just makes people feel so special. But I think the secret about it that, you don't really think about when you see a hand calligraphed good is how much joy it actually brought to the maker. Because as you're creating, and I know that as I'm creating, I'm certainly talking at you a lot, but whenever I'm by myself creating calligraphy, I always just feel so calm. And some of the people in the TPK Premium community were saying that they actually go the next level with the calmness, and they will put on calming videos from YouTube. So ocean scenes or, snowy scenes, just anything to really put you in that relaxation sort of state. And then they do their creation. So that's a little known thing about calligraphy, that it really is just super, super relaxing. And I think it really helps people not only get through a lot of, just the yucky stuff in life, but also that everyday sort of, check your screen every time it beeps sort of thing too. It's a real return to the analog, and that just makes it such a calming and soothing activity. So that's why I like it. So let's see here. You know what? I actually messed up on this. These should be on the other side. But that's okay. Let's run with it. We'll just pretend we made it this way instead of starting here. So we'll make this be the downstroke. But typically in a D, and I'll show you, you know, you start right here, go down, 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 over, up. And so right here are where the tines split, and you make that thick downstroke. It really doesn't matter in pieces like this because there are so many flourishes that nobody's actually going to notice any sort of error like that, but I don't know. That's okay. I'm actually still going to add a little bit of stroke width here. So does that make sense why this is a bit of a mess up? It's because in order to form this letter, you would have gone down, 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 which means thick downstroke, up, up. And so all of this should be thin. This should be thin, 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 because it's all up. Then this right here on the right should be thick, thin upstroke, thick downstroke, thin upstroke. Again, you're not going to see it because there's a lot of contrast here, but were I not, you know, so distracted just by filling in the flourishes without really thinking about it, I would have made that letter differently. That's all right though. That's another thing with calligraphy. I think it really teaches you to roll with your mistakes, because if you stopped every piece you were doing and you messed up even a little on, you would never get anything done. So a lot of times you have to think, okay, how serious is this mess up? Can it be fixed some way? Can I camouflage this in some way, shape, or form? And if the answer is yes, that's what you go for. And if you're wondering how a person fixes permanent calligraphy that is made with a pen and ink, the answer is usually an X-Acto knife. You can just scrape off mistakes. If it's, you know, terribly difficult to fix, sometimes I'll try to cover it up by splattering gold watercolor on it. That's also effective. Notice how I'm rotating this piece. And again, remember, you can pause this video at any time if you want to just take a look, see what I've done so far. Here you go. This is a good area to pause it. And then we're just going to finish up with the Y. So this is a downstroke right here, down, 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 down. Really make sure, even though you're working with an instrument you're used to, this isn't, you know, super intimidating, hopefully. We do tend to have this habit of pausing our breath if something is hard. So you'll want to make sure that you're breathing regularly, even when you reach these, you know, somewhat challenging steps of filling in the flourishes. So just making this here, and we'll fill that in. And again, this is a lot faster with a pointed pen because you cut the time in half since you only go over everything once. I'm gonna go ahead and fill in these little guys. A lot of times, interestingly, pointed pen ink, like India ink or Sumi, doesn't work too great on cardstock, but there are a lot of different inks that do. So know that you can still make that pink calligraphy on black cardstock if you're using the pointed pen. And if you just are in your element doing this type of calligraphy, that is fabulous too. It's all valid. You know, we're all just in it to make pretty letters, and however you prefer to do that, I'm just happy you're here enjoying this tutorial. Now let's take some stock here and see if we should add anything else. I think it actually might be pretty to add a couple of hearts, especially given that we're leaning into this very feminine pink theme. So let's make a couple of little rectangles here to denote a shiny heart. Fill that in. We are almost done, so hang in there. My second rectangle might be getting lost there. I'll just cover it up. If you can make your rectangles a little bigger, that's probably for the best. Okay, so there's a heart. And then maybe we'll add another one right here, slightly different size. Still have that light rectangle. So fill that in. And then we should probably end with one last heart down here. So our motif feels full, but it's not overflowing, if that makes sense. We don't want to make it too busy, and we still want to respect just a little bit of breathing room along the margin of the card. Okay, so there is your beginner calligraphy Mother's Day card, which you can then tuck into a little envelope, and you will delight any mother for Mother's Day. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you want to learn more, you can go through my other videos, visit the TPK blog, because there are more than 1,000 articles and tutorials there about watercolor, pointed pen calligraphy, brush pen calligraphy, lettering, whatever you can think of. It's all there. If you're curious, you can also pick up a copy of the calligraphy book at, anywhere they sell books. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.